Hey, what's up, everybody? I haven't made a video about specifically or exclusively about VeVe in a long time, but I felt I had to make one now because of a lot of the discussion around what David Yu has been saying about interoperability. And I know in some cases, in comments to that I've made or on my videos, people have called me a fudder, even though I'm just basically pointing to facts. And you may think, well, I'm going to diss Vivi in this instance, but actually not. So my position on this is that David's right. Interoperability is not an issue. You may go like, "What? I mean, I thought you were the Web3 interoperable guy, and you made a video about this a long time ago." Yeah. So when I got into Vivi, it was mainly because of the IP, and I thought that before I got into it and read the terms of use, that Vivi was a Web3 company. But in reality, Vivi is not a Web3 company at this time. It may be in the future, but it is not at this time. And people say, well, that's not true. Well, let me point to the Web3 Foundation. So here are the tenets of Web3. The Web3 Foundation believes the users own their own data, not corporations. So this is what we're going to talk about. Global digital transactions are secure. That's what David has been preaching. And online exchanges of information and value are decentralized. Well, that's not true either. So my opinion is VeVe is what it is. And I've come to realize that it is not currently a Web3 type company. It is not what I thought when I first got into the space. I still like the IP. I still like what they're going, but I've really dropped down on my putting my money into VeVe. And so, for full disclosure, uh, I had a balance of comics and collectibles. I'm a comics guy. I sold off all my collectibles, including my ultra rare Darth Vader, and I cashed that out, paid the fee, cashed it out. It was successful, and that was before Wire went down. And I kept the comics. And so basically, luckily for me, that I'm not an old timer. I got in March of 2022 when everything was started to go down. And ever since I joined, stuff has gone down. But luckily for me, um, because of how I been looking at this app and trading within the app, I'm slightly up. So I cashed out, and uh, that didn't recoup all my fiat investment. So I still have about half of my current assets are my cost base. So I'm up of what I have currently left, all in comics, about 50%. What I want to do is, once I started reading the terms of use, and I made a video about the terms of use, I really got to understand where they're coming from. And quite frankly, I think for where they are and how they're designing their business, um, they happen to be right. So I forgot about interoperability a long time ago, and basically it happened in August of 2022 when the terms of use got updated. And this was all as right after the banning of the off-app gem purchases and introduction of KYC. So let's go through the relevant sections. This section may be kind of boring, but it'll prove my point. So the first section is in the terms of use, and you can get to this by going to vv.me, scroll all the way to the bottom, and click on terms of use. And I hate reading off the screen, but this is important. So in 6.2, it starts off by closing the account. So I'll read it. We may suspend or close your account or restrict your access to our services or to all of certain of your collectibles and or your tokens as we in our sole discretion determine is appropriate in the circumstances. If A, you breach any clause in these terms of use, including to avoid doubt the matter set out at clause 6.1 above. B, this is key. New law or regulation related to tokens is proposed or enacted that impacts on the services or impacts on your or our rights and obligations under the terms of use and or in relation to the tokens and slash or collectibles. C, termination or withdrawal of rights by VeVe licensors that affect rights in relation to collectibles that were previously granted. And D, conduct by you that is in violation of law or regulation. We may also restrict your access to our services while we investigate any circumstances or conduct which we consider that you may have breached any clause in these terms of use. The keys here, and this is to me a poorly written section because it intermingles bad actions by the user as opposed and also with changes in the environment. So if you follow me on my videos or on Twitter, you notice I keep abreast of US law and regulation in cryptocurrency because, you know, my opinion is the US is going kind of overboard and it's going to affect our development in this very exciting space of Web3. And so if any law regulation related to the tokens, and oddly enough, the term token will be explained in the next section. So you can lose access to your collectibles, you know, for example, if certain laws are, if Gary Gensler and the SEC go crazy and ban NFTs. But the other one is if VeVe loses the license. If they lose the license, you can also lose your access to your collectibles and comics. The next relevant section is section 7, intellectual property, and it's number 2. This is very important. Your rights. Subject to your compliance with these terms of use, we grant you a personal, non-commercial, non-exclusive, non-transferable, revocable, limited license or sub-license to the extent the content was licensed to us to download, view, display, and use the content solely for your permitted use by our services. So it basically says you can't take it off the app. Solely for your permitted use within our services. Clearly stated right here in number 7.2, intellectual property. Let's look at the next section. This is under also section 7, and it explains what you are getting. So for a collectible, number 11, you acknowledge and agree that the intellectual property rights in all collectibles remain with the relevant VeVe licensor. That's key. When you buy a collectible using the market or store, you are basically you are buying a token associated with the relevant collectible through a transaction recording your ownership thereof on our nominated blockchain that includes a limited license to the digital property derived from the intellectual property rights of the VeVe licensors to the extent that if you own the token, you can access the digital property through the token pursuant to these terms of use. Section B just basically goes on to what we said earlier in section 6, where you basically use it solely within the VeVe app, showroom and market, including reselling the collectible on the market in accordance with the terms of use. So they specifically state that you can only use it within the app. Let's look at the next section. So again, this is still under intellectual property. Number 11, subsection 6. You acknowledge and agree that as between you and VeVe or the VeVe licensors, VeVe or the VeVe licensors own or control all legal right, title, and interest and to the digital property and all intellectual property rights therein. The rights you have and to the digital property are limited to those described in the limited license. Except specifically provided in this limited license, you will have no rights in or to the digital property. And Section 7, you also understand and agree that neither VeVe or any of the VeVe licensors are liable in any case of any inability for you to access the digital property for any reason, including as a result of any downtime, failure, obsolescence, removal, termination, or other disruption relating to the storage of or access to the digital property. So basically, they're not liable if you can't get to it. And this is also covered in Section 13, where 1C, VeVe does not insure funds it holds or the collectibles themselves. So what does this all mean? Basically, think about it like you're playing an old video game and like Ultima. When Ultima Online came out, everything you do in there is within the game. You can spend money, you can buy stuff. But once the game goes away, or they stop providing the service, it's gone. That's it. Now, that's just the nature of the project. So for those that are getting upset at VeVe as well, you're not interoperable, this or that. And I was one of them initially. And that's because I didn't read this. I didn't read the terms of use. And it's, like they say, do your own research. I didn't do the research to understand. Everybody said, you're watching the influencers and everything. Wow, it's a great new Web3 project. It's not a Web3 project yet. It may be. I grant, maybe they will change these terms of use. And, in David Yu's space the other day, he said, that's what he wants. I mean, they eventually want to be interoperable, but again, he did have the caveat that it's dependent on the license and the licensor. So some things may be, some things may not. The VeVe-verse, will it be interoperable? Initially, yes. It'll be like spatial. Yes, you can take it in. And you can take the stuff that you can take in and you can take it out. But will you be able to take your Disney collectibles out? No, not at this time. That's just how it is. So don't get upset about it. Now, so am I saying that, well, I'm bailing on the project, I'm going to sell everything? No, I'm still accumulating. But as I said at other times, I haven't put any fiat dollars in since October 2022, and I'm just building my comic book collection by trading. And eventually there'll come a time where I won't, I may not have any gems left or, or things to buy, sell, and trade if, the market just keeps going down. And then, basically I'll just leave it. I'm not going to, right now, they do have the IP. And do I think they have the technology? Quite frankly, no. But can they build the technology, or can they partner with somebody to help them build the technology? That's what I'm banking on. So as far as interoperability is concerned, don't sweat it. It's not here. The terms of use clearly state that it's not here. And they give you no rights to the interoperability. So it's in black and white. This is not FUD. This is just facts. And actually, maybe it'll help you sleep better at night, because it sure has helped me sleep better. Because once I understood it, it's like, this is how it is. No point getting upset about it. You can ask them, potentially to change, and maybe they will. So on today's space with Lori Brenner, this issue also came up, and she asked the hard question. Well, what happens if VeVe goes under? If VeVe goes under, you have the potential to lose everything. David did say, and it is in one of the terms that we went over, that the rights go back to the licensor, and the licensor, they have it in their contract, which it is. It's stated in the terms of use that the rights go back to the licensor. But the question is, David in the space said everything will be public, so we'd be able to get it. We'd be able to get our token, whatnot. Quite frankly, I think that's an over exaggeration. And this is just my opinion. This is the one thing that I cannot state by pointing at the terms of use. Also, in section 715, it'll explain this. It says, you acknowledge that some VeVe licensors may in certain circumstances have the right to require that the digital property containing the VeVe licensor's intellectual property rights be transferred to a different platform through which the relevant user will be able to continue to access and use the digital property. We may disclose the personal information of any impacted user to such VeVe licensor, and such VeVe licensor may contact impacted users for the purpose of enabling ongoing access and the use of the digital property. So David is upfront and saying that they may transfer it to a different platform. But the real big question is, will the licensor continue to maintain that platform? Because, if you use Spatial, or if you use Sketchfab, you know that you can download the 3D models for things like, for the unlicensed product, the fan art, like for Vaders and whatnot. And you can take those models and you could use it in an AR viewer inside of Windows 10 in the Windows 3D viewer, and you can actually play them and do the same function that you can do within VeVe with even more function, because you can animate them and whatnot. I should make a video about that, showing you how it works. But I mean, you can have a Vader's TIE Fighter flying over your head, which you can't do within VeVe. But I would highly doubt, and this is just my opinion, that Disney would let the 3D models, or even DC, let the 3D models out into the wild. That you could, should VeVe go under, yes, VeVe will give you the token back, but it's just like what happened when FTX crashed and when they shut down their NFT service, people had the token, but when they went to use it to get their NFT, they basically got a 404 error, which is, not found because they didn't keep the digital image. So, people say, oh, but you can take stuff like, the McFarlane stuff and import it into stuff like Spatial. Yes, I've done that. I have my McFarlane Dragon in my Spatial home. But it's only a 2D image of the NFT. I don't have the full access to the 3D model. So your access to the 3D platform may or may not be possible. It all depends on what happens when if the licensor takes it back, or if VeVe goes under. Now, for comics and stuff, I'm pretty much less worried about that, because I think if Marvel did end up taking it back, it's just gonna be like Marvel Unlimited. You just may not be able to do it in AR, but if you can read the pages, it is what it is. But I mean, I'm not buying the Marvel comics on VeVe to read the comics, and that's because I already have Marvel Unlimited. I can read it better on my bigger screen than I can do it on the VeVe app, and plus I can read the whole story, because in VeVe, because it's a collectible, you don't get the full story run. So if I wanted to have the full story run of let's say Fantastic Four 52, that goes through multiple issues. But I'm only getting one issue. What if I want to read them all? I mean, the collectible app isn't the place to read it. If you want to read it and you want to read it on the digital platform, get Marvel Unlimited. It's way cheaper. So just to put everything into perspective, when you go back to Section 7, Intellectual Property, 11, Collectibles, and you go down to C, let me blow this up. For the avoidance of doubt, your ownership, possession, or control of a token does not provide you any ownership, copyright, title, or similar interest in any digital property. E. Your ownership of a collectible does not include any rights to the digital property except as expressly provided in these terms of use. You have the license to use the token and thus access the content while in the app. That's what it states in the terms of use. This is a long video. I did a lot of reading out of the terms of use, which is super boring, but it's really important. And, you know, it shows that VeVe and the team planned this, and they planned it well. It's in the terms of use. That's how they designed the company. And if you were like me and made assumptions that it wasn't like this, I look at it this way. I learned many, many months ago, that's not VeVe's fault. That's my fault. Because I made an assumption of something that was in black and white, that I didn't do my own research and know what the situation was. Well, once I did my own research, I had two choices. Either grumble, or and be unhappy, as you know, my collectibles have said many times, and still try to deal with the platform and hoping that things are going to change. My father told me when I was young, you know, if you're going to be in business and you're going to rely on hope, you're better off going to church rather than doing business. So I just accepted it for what it was. I limited the amount of money that I wanted to invest in or spend on this platform because, you know, because I want to look for a more Web3 based platform and just have fun with how it is. If it changes, great. If it doesn't, nothing changes. That is how it is. It is how it is. It's in black and white. So no point complaining. Just enjoy the ride. If it changes, we'll see. Thanks for watching, and aloha.